Welcome to another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast. Today we have Coach Woody Blevins with us today. Coach is the defensive coordinator at Assumption College. Coach, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good, Coach. For those who don't know who you are or don't have haven't had much interaction with you or maybe seen you in glance, would you mind giving kind of like a quick background on kind of how you got to Assumption?
Yeah. I'll give you my coaching background, the Reader's Digest version. So, started out, I played at Drake University in Iowa for 2 seasons, and I transferred to Colorado Mesa University, formerly Mesa State College. Graduated from there, began coaching immediately, and then we got fired. Welcome to coaching. So then I went to University of Northern Colorado, FCS school in the Big Sky. Volunteered for 1 year. Slept on a bathroom floor. Got promoted to GA the next year, full-time the year after that, full-time safeties coach. Then after 3 years, I got promoted to special teams coordinator and safeties coach, then corners coach and special teams coordinator. Then went to the University of Hawaii as a defensive analyst, assisted with the DBs in 2019, and then headed 1/5 of the way across planet Earth to Worcester, Massachusetts, to Assumption University as a defense coordinator and corners coach.
That is an interesting jump there from essentially west coast of the country your entire career, and then here let's just go complete opposite. It's just
and I'm exploring the world. In the words of Nick Rolovich, I got to have a Magellan mindset, right?
There you go. I love me some Nick Rolovich. I think he does some great things, and I wish him nothing but success at Washington State. First thing I want to get into, because you are a big culture guy. You were a special teams coordinator for a while. That's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on. But and we talked off screen, and there's for those people who haven't seen it, just kind of you can I think Teams Talk retweeted it out recently. I know you've liked and retweeted it as well. I liked and retweeted it. But there's like an infamous kicking meeting video of you, and it kind of like shows culture at its finest, in my opinion. And we talked briefly about this, like. You want to talk a little bit about that video, because it is like the first minute of your special teams meeting, and I think and it shows you have everybody bought into special teams.
Yeah. So we had the entire team in our special teams meeting. So as a coach, it's hard to engage the entire team. So I wanted to find ways, and I did it multiple ways, and none of them are my ideas. So I stole them from everybody, for a bunch of people, but I went out to San Jose State and stole the kicking game, all right? We didn't refer to it as special teams. We called it the kicking game, right? We stole the kicking game introduction from Freddie G, the special teams coordinator at San Jose, he's still there, who is the absolute master of special teams. And without him, I wouldn't have had any success at all. So he showed me where the pitfalls and all the mines were for a first-year coordinator. He told me, hey, if you don't listen, you're going to step in every single one of these mines. And he was right. And I listened to most of them, so I was kind of steered myself clear. But what the deal was is, in the way that I really got the team behind it was the offensive line was always in special teams meetings, right? And so I went to the offensive line, who always sat up front, and I said, guys, I need you to have my back. Like, you guys are the heart and soul of this team. We're going to do something called a kicking game introduction. And all I need you to do is just go nuts every time, like every single time. And the kids and I'd always had a good relationship with them. I tried to do coaches and players, but mainly players. But I said, listen, say whatever you want to say. You have 60 seconds. You have 60 seconds to say whatever you want to say. I don't care what it is, as long as you end it with, it all starts with the kicking game. Right. And that was what they did. And so we had all sorts of we had an Irish toast that was excellent. Some dude made up his own rap and rapped and ended with it, and the kids got hyped. But it was a great way to start meetings, because you got to start meetings with some sort of energy. And I truly believe in speaking to the man first, the student second, and the athlete third. And that's how you have to take everything. That's how I have to do everything. Every practice, every meeting starts with the man first. It starts with them as a person getting excited. Then it starts with, we always do something called the juice, right? Which is a positive quote. Then the next thing we do is we go through our values every single day, no matter what. And so we always start with them as a person first. So when I do tell the kids that, I'm here to give you a better life and career than you can imagine for yourself. And how I do that and how we are going to do that is to make you and teach you how to be the best man, student, athlete you can be. So then when you say those things, they know you're all about it because that's how you do everything. But that's just a little bit about how we started to build that culture. And I was listening to the head coach at South Dakota State speak one year at the convention. He spoke really early. Weren't very many coaches there. And he said that culture gets all the credit, right? But what people don't understand is how important the climate is, right? Is it hot? Is it warm? A nice 85 sunny Hawaii day where everybody's in a good mood, right? It's all love. Or do you have to turn the temperature down? And you do. You have to fiddle with the thermostat. Like I tell my defensive coaches now, there's some days where I'll tell them, hey, you are not allowed to coach negatively. Like no yelling, no nothing. But you have to coach them honest. If something's wrong, you tell them, but you do it in a positive way. No negativity, no yelling, no nothing. All positive today. We've been really hard, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're constantly trying to make sure you get the climate that you want as well as the culture.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you always turn up to 100 degrees, it kind of makes it a hard place to sustain. Where it's
I kind of equate it to like that would be like turning it all the way down so the coaches are cold and hard. You know what I'm saying? But then you turn it up to a nice 85-degree day, and it's nice and easy, laid back, and that's kind of how I equate it. Hey, guys, we got to turn the thermostat up a little bit and make it nice and warm today. Make it a nice warm day. So I'm just very mindful of climate and always have been.
No, that's great, Coach. I'm actually writing that down now. Now I kind of want to continue with this. And what drove you to become a special teams coordinator? Obviously, you started your career as a safeties coach and a DBs coach and kind of transitioned to this. What drove you to pursue this? Because, you weren't – some special teams coordinators are just former kickers or special teams aces. What drove you to kind of go to this direction?
Well, I'll say this. Number one, I knew that I needed to do it because I want to be a head coach. And anybody that says that they're ready to be a head coach, I don't believe them until they've been a special teams coordinator. Because it's not necessarily 1/3 of the game if you actually add up the stats of how many plays a game it is, but it's pretty close. And I think that it's very important to understand what that coach is going through and how much he has on his plate. There's no way for you to know it unless you're in it. So I knew it was important, and I actually didn't pursue it. But what I did know is that it was my job, to help coach special teams. And so when I was a GA full-time coach, I went to every single special teams meeting. It seems kind of weird, but not every coach on our staff went to every special teams meeting. So I was the only coach that from the time I got there to the time I left that went to every meeting, special teams meeting in that building, no matter what. And so when our special teams coordinator left, Brian Cummings, who was an amazing man, amazing coach. But when he left, the head coach came to my office and he was like, listen, you've been in every special teams meeting, I'm going to give you the special teams title. And I said, okay. And I was, and one of my mentors, Carl Hargrave, he always told me, if you ever get a chance to climb the ladder, climb it. So I said, absolutely, coach. Yeah. Now, did I really know what I want to do? And said, did I have a scheme on my brain? No. No, I didn't. But I knew I was going to have to work my butt off to talk to people and learn, and I did.
Oh, no, I get you 100%. Because, like we talked, I've been a high school defense coordinator for a couple of years. I've been a freshman head coach, other kind of titles. Part of the reason I wanted to become special teams coordinator is the great thing about being a special teams coordinator is you get to work with everybody on the roster.
Yes.
I get to, linemen play field goal PAT, skill kids pretty much play every other specialty. You have an interaction at some point every day with probably about every kid. Whereas if you're just maybe a position coach, if I'm just a wide receivers coach, there's 2/3 of the team I might not interact with, or at least half. Quarterbacks, receivers, I may or may not interact with running backs, linemen, any defensive only guys I might not see. It's for me, and to your point, I have head coach aspirations. And that's one thing I talk about. It's I have experience now working with everybody on the roster, from offensive lineman over here to our best skill kid over here, and kind of how to figure out how to get all those pieces to work together. And it kind of goes back to, again, our conversation about culture. If you don't get, I mean, whether they're your worst kids, your least athletic kids, or your best skill kids, you have to get them to buy into what you're doing.
That's right.
I mean, especially at the high school level, getting your skill kids to buy in all the time is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, because they don't recognize that when they watch college and pro athletics, they don't see the 4 and 5 star who's on special teams his freshman sophomore year, whether they're playing or not. They don't pay attention to that aspect. So
and something I was always telling the guys was, dude, you got to be on special teams so you're in the rhythm of the game. I can't put you in at safety if you've been sitting on the sideline all game and haven't moved. I'm going to put somebody in that's warm. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's in tune with what's going on, because they're playing the game just like everybody else is. And so that was a big rallying cry for me, you know, and trying to get guys excited about special teams, you know. And when you get the O-line excited, they're the heart and soul of the team, whether you like it or don't, and it pulls everybody else along.
Oh yeah, they have their own little mini culture within your culture, your team. Like I mean, I played offensive line in high school. It is a strange brotherhood that you will always have. Whether you always got along or not is a whole different question. But you're in the trenches together. You got to trust each other. And then I kind of want to move on to, I mean, what were the biggest lessons you learned? It could be scheme oriented, it could be culture oriented. I mean, off the top of my head, I could list thousands of things over 2 years. But kind of what were the kind of biggest things you learned during your experience as special teams coordinator?
The first thing is just talking with coaching the whole team, and working with so many guys and really being able to work on leadership and coaching people with so many people rapid fire. Like your coaching skills are sharpened very quickly as a special teams coordinator because you're doing so much. So the one thing that I think is really important is, you hear a lot of coaches say, oh, we're going to pour into our players. Oh, we're going to pour into our players. And that's not it. That is not it. It's such an egocentric way to look at it. Like, oh, I'm the one that's going to make you good. No. That you can't make a player great because you put into him. It's your job to see the greatness in the kid and pull it out of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's your job to see the greatness in your team, in this unit, in the special teams unit, and pull it out of them and teach them where it is inside themselves, because they don't know where it is all the time. Does that make sense? Some of them are more in tune than others. And I think that was the number one lesson I learned, which is it's not about pouring in. It's about seeing the greatness in these kids and pulling it out. The next thing, values. Like, there was a study done. It's in a book called The Culture Code. It's a great book. Easy read, too, by Daniel Coyle. And he makes the comment that they did some sort of study with a bunch of, Fortune 500 companies, and they asked all the employees, they said, all right, what are your company's values, right? And they sent it all to all the employees, and then they asked the CEOs, what percentage of your employees know your values, your mission statement, your, big idea, whatever it is, right? And they said, oh, easy, probably 60% no. Nope, less than 10. So if your people don't know your values, you don't have values. They don't exist. They are non-existent. They're, the blew away in the wind. Okay. So we talked about it every day. Right now, every single unit meeting we have, we started with our 3 values, which was what I was when I was a special teams coordinator, what I am now as a defensive coordinator: discipline, effort, and attitude. Those are our 3 values. We call it DEA, right? And the reason we chose those, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's important, is because everybody says you can choose your effort or your attitude, right? That's why, it's 2 things you can choose. Yeah, but what about that choice? Nobody talks about the choice. The more important thing about choosing the better attitude or your better effort, right? Because discipline is the choice between what you want most and what you want right now, right? So if you're choosing to run hard every play rather than, oh, I want to drink water and it's hot, then we call that great effort. If you're choosing to listen and to be positive instead of feeling sorry for yourself and letting your ego get in the way, we call that a great attitude. So that's why it's the 3 values. But what we do is every meeting I say, I put up D, E, and A. And I say, so-and-so, what's the D stand for? And they say discipline. I say, what does it mean to you? They say, it's a choice between what you want most and what you want right now, right? And I say, so-and-so, what's the E stand for? And they say effort. And I say, what does that mean to you? and they'll respond with life is a math problem, right? Like life is a math. You put in efforts, you get out results. There's no way to trick the system, right?
Yeah.
They say life is a math problem. I say, what's the third value so-and-so? And they say attitude. And I say, what does that mean to you? Attitude equals your altitude. In every meeting we start out with that. Then I say to the whole group, DEA is our, and they respond with DNA. Like DEA is in our blood. It's in our DNA. It's not what we do. It's not what we talk about. DEA is our DNA. It's what makes us up. And every meeting starts exactly like that, after we do the juice. Okay. But I think it was important because at the end of the season, when guys were hurt, we didn't have the talent that we needed to have, we were able to come together because they knew our values. And because every man who stepped on that field was of the same mindset. The DEA is how we did things. That's how we worked. That's how we did our special teams meetings. That's how we did this. That's how we did that. Right. So we were able to do some things, and that was a big idea why. But also, the next lesson I learned was not what you do, it's how you do it. And dude, if they know your values, guess what they're going to do? They're going to do it how you want them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it kind of rolls into each other. And something like I kind of alluded to it, another great lesson I learned with having the entire team in a meeting is you're trying to make it a back and forth, right? And you can't just sit and get, like kids can't sit and get, but that's how we do most meetings. So when I went to Oklahoma State, they do a great job of using what they call, not what they call, but it's something from the book Culture Code they call catchphrases, right? So like DEA is our DNA. So I might be talking, hey, so-and-so, you got to block this dude. You got him. Hey, the L3 is doing this. DEA is our, and they all respond with DNA, right? Or I'll say, how do we solve problems? And the defense responds with aggression. Ball on the ground. They say OFB means our effing ball, right? I say smart swarm. They all say it takes 11, right? We have a tips and overthrows. They say, got to get those. That's for defense. But for special teams, I used to say one or more explosives, and they'd say undefeated. Because if you get one or more explosive plays on special teams in a game, you'll win the game over 90% of the time. And if you do one a game, every game, you'll be undefeated. So I'd be talking, hey, this guy's coming off this edge. The L3 is doing this guy's doing that. One or more explosives, undefeated. Everybody responds like that. The whole team, undefeated. And if they didn't do it well enough, I'd say one or more explosives, right? And they all respond undefeated. So the whole meeting is a back and forth. Every 5 minutes, there's a catchphrase. Every 5 minutes, that makes sense. So and it's funny, once the kids mess those up, like if you ask a certain individual what this value is and they don't get it right, guys are like, dude, what is wrong with you, right? So the culture's feeding itself all of a sudden. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And then other guys hear that this dude just got chastised because he know the values, and then all of a sudden it's not cool to not know the values. You know what I'm saying? Then, dude, a really important lesson, complementary, not complexity. Like, people try to be complex. Mm-mm. Complementary, not complexity. Two very different things and two very, very different results on the field. And then with that, be bold and sound. Like, you got to be bold, right? You got to risk it to get the biscuit, but that doesn't mean you have to be unsound.
Yeah.
You don't. There's too many ways. There's too many ways to drop 11 guys to make something, to do it unsound and be a bad football coach. Because you got to look those kids in the eyes and say, if you're going to do it unsound, you got to tell the kids before, if they do this, we're about to get beat.
Yeah. And
that's okay, but be bold, because you're trying to beat the 18 to 22-year-olds, but you're trying to stress out the coaches. You're not trying to beat the coaches. They're not playing. You're trying to stress them out, though. Like we would put two punters in the backfield at the same time, and we'd free roll one way or the other. We'd shift one, and so there was one punter, then we'd shift them and put them the other way. And so one kicked with both feet, one kicked with the right foot, and but you know what? It allowed us to be really complimentary, and it looked really complex, but it was stupid simple. Right?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And the next one, sun location. Dude, sun location, sun location, sun location. We dropped 2 kickoff returns because I was dumb enough to not know where the sun location was, and that was on me. And those kids pretty much lost a game because I was unprepared. Now, were there other coaches on the staff? Yep. But I needed to be more in tune with the stadium, and I wasn't. And it's okay because I had to own it in front of the kids, and it's unfortunate, but it's a lesson I learned, and I already learned it, and I will not go through that again. So and then fake a punt. Just fake a punt. Forget it. Just do it.
Just fake
do
a
it.
punt. I love it.
Don't even think about it. Don't get scared. Just fake a punt.
That's great.
But those are my lessons. Like those are like the top ones I learned. I had to throw a bunch of them out, but rapid fire, those are the best lessons I learned.
I'm gonna text that to my head coach after this. Just fake a punt. That's awesome.
Just fake
I love it.
One time. First 3 games, fake one punt.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Better yet, second game.
Now,
I'll do the first game. Everybody thinks the first. They're so on pins and needles. Second game, somebody might cool down. Third game, probably perfection.
Oh yeah, especially that first game too. Like everybody's like, watch this, watch that. You know they're going to try something. Like just breathe, son, breathe.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, their antennas are up, man. Let those antennas go down a little bit. You know?
Oh God. No, I love all that, Coach. That's all great little tidbits. I probably just wrote down half a page of this off you talking there. Yeah, I mean that's the one thing people don't realize. Like when I do a lot of these interviews and podcasts, I have a pen and paper in front of me and I'm just notes. You always learn.
Take it from the former worst DB coach in America. You're either growing or you're dying. So is grass, right? So trees. You're either growing or you're dying. That's how life is built.
Well, that's how I felt my first year as a DC coach. I feel like the worst defense coordinator in the country right now. You probably could have made an argument with how bad we were, but next year we were much better.
It helps you learn and grow, though.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it overhauled my whole mentality at that point. So, kind of moving on. I'm just going to kind of combine these into two, and you can kind of pick it up at how you want. What would you say was the most underrated part of special teams that you had to deal with, or you didn't necessarily think about before you dealt with it? And then what was the most overrated part?
Okay, I'll go most overrated real fast, then we'll go back to underrated. Overrated, scheme on returns. Dude, you got to have a dude that catches the football and can run with it. As much as I love to say, dude, we schemed this thing up. Man, we schemed it up. We blocked it up. But we had babies at returner. Babies, freshmen, all freshmen. You know, we lost 2 All-American returners, and it was a big – I mean, they were catching punts for the first time in a game. And there's no excuse, right? But we weren't able to get returns going. I mean, we had I want to say we had 11 kickoff returns hit the ground. You know what I'm saying? And you can't return the ball if the guys aren't catching the ball if they're not ready for it, right? We had guys catching the ball running out of bounds 3 times. So most overrated is scheme, because you gotta have that guy. You gotta have a guy who can go, and that's what is most important. Then blocking is important. I wish it was the other way, and I was like, no, we'll be fine. No, we'll be fine. Nope, you can't convince me otherwise. And I've seen what it's like when you got to do back there, and they make a lot of stuff right. So the next thing is most underrated is someone to help you. Someone to help you. I had a guy named Kyle Ashby who was the GA at Northern Colorado still. He's a volunteer for me, and he's irreplaceable. I still did a lot of the work myself, but that man was unbelievable. He'll be a great coach in the future, and super proud of him, and big help. You said something. How did you ask the question? The most, what was it again?
I reword these kind of as, what was the most overrated part of special teams and most underrated part of special teams? And I actually extremely agree with you on the help aspect, because we had 2 former head coaches on our staff, and they were kind of like my little guiding signal this year. Well, let's correct yourself here, get on that, refocus here. They were extremely tremendous helps for me this year, and I couldn't agree with that statement more about the help you have for what's underrated in terms of special teams.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I thought I had something else for you.
No, you're good. You're good. Hey, again, like I said, I have a half page of notes. I think you're giving me gold at this point. Yeah. And then, I mean, kind of continuing from there, when scouting's a whole monster, and I think just in general, people could talk. I mean, offense, defense, special teams, you could talk scouting and how you scout for hours, and there's interesting on interesting. But from just a standard kind of basic, or what was the most important, what did you look for in each phase of the special teams when you were scouting opponents?
Well, before I really go into that, and I think we can go round and round on that. I don't know if that would serve guys as well right here, but this is you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yes.
So I thought it was really unique because I'm all about systemizing, right? If it's not repeatable, it doesn't exist. So, what I wanted to do was create a scouting script. because what I did is there was one coach that helped me with each unit. One different coach helped me with each unit because I did all the units myself. And I had my guy Kyle, right, our volunteer, who would go through every unit. Myself, who would go through every unit, and then I would have one full-time coach responsible. And I told the full-time coaches, I want you to watch every play straight through. Don't rewind. Just watch it, and it should take you about 15, 20 minutes. So that I didn't want them overwhelmed, because you know how it is, coach. Oh, I got to watch this, and they're not paying attention. Hey, I want you to watch it. Put on some good music, something that's like upbeat, get you in a good mood, and I want you to watch it through, and I want you to fill this paper out. So what I had this big sheet of paper that I thought through. Okay, what are things that I would look for every single week, right? What are the things we need to know, right? What do we have to know? What would beat our schemes no matter what? What are our weaknesses, right? Do they do those things? Where are the holes in okay, do they do those things, right? And then like with the people and all that. But I had that all on one page. And so each unit had its own page with its own kind of customized questions. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. And so that way it kept the lens the same for 3 people, but everybody saw maybe something a little different or the same. And so when we went through it, I made sure it covered kind of everything. And then as you go through the season, you don't fill out half the questions sometimes, right? Or you may create a new note. Does that make sense? But I did a really all-encompassing sheet that I thought was pretty solid. And it was just from asking guys what they look for in each unit, special teams coordinators. And it was excellent because Kyle, my guy, would fill out all the questions, every week. And then I would do everything every week. And he was huge because he would get kind of the nuts and bolts out of the way. 38 is the punter. Hey, 37 came in and punted with his left foot once, or something like that, right? 82 is the main returner, but 17 came in once or twice, he got those kind of things. So I knew who they were. And then when I filled it out, I could do it faster. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I didn't have to just do everything from scratch. And then the full-time guys didn't really have the view of that. I didn't want that I wanted the meat of the questions, right? Did they give you a jammer alert on punt or a vice alert on punt? Did they give you, do they stem pre-snap? Do they like send edge blocks? What, all these different questions I had lined out. Some of them were yes and no. Some of them were open-ended. And that would help me game plan dramatically so that I could see 3 different people's work through the same exact lens, and it covered all of our bases.
Okay. Now I kind of want to build off that and it's not something we kind of talked about, but I want to move back to culture real quick and your staff. And I understand, like I said, obviously you're at the college level and people are getting paid to coach. But at the same time, there's a big difference between doing your job and buying into your job. There's a drastic difference, in my opinion. I mean, so how did you get the other coaches to buy in to what you were doing besides just, obviously they're going to fill out the sheet either way, but there's a big difference between just filling out the sheet and buying in and filling out the sheet. There's a drastic difference. You know this as I do. So how did you achieve that?
I mean, I think the first way is that I put certain people in charge that I knew that I had I won't say just a good relationship with, because that was only half the battle. But I think the first things first, just like kids, people don't care what you know until they know you care, right? So guys that I knew, right, I was somewhat close with, I had a good relationship with, a good standing, and I knew that it would be more than just, I'm doing this for special teams coordinator. I'm doing it for Woody. Does that make sense? That was the first step. And then the next step was making it easy on them. Hey, I want you to once over. That's all I want. Once over this thing, put on happy music, right? Put on that type of deal, and just do it in a good mood. And so that it wasn't painful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I knew one of my coaches that helped kickoff return, he didn't want to do all that. But when I made it easy on him like that, I was like, dude, all I want is this, just 15 minutes of your time. Set your timer. If it takes you more than 15 minutes, cut it off. Because to be honest, we're coaching a game. You don't have to watch this thing for hours, right? If you give coaches all day, they'll take all day. Okay. So I said 15 minutes, and if you don't get through the plays in 15 minutes, that's fine. You're done. Just set your timer, get it done in 15 minutes. So, dude, they knew they could knock it out in 15 minutes, hang me the page, we could have a 5-minute conversation about it, and we were good. So I made it easy. I made it something. And then you know what? Guys would naturally take a little bit longer than they thought. Well, oh, what will they do here? Because then all of a sudden they want to find the winning. And then I would praise them for doing a good job. Hey, I appreciate you doing it, man. Gratitude, what you think about and you think about, you bring about, you know. So I would thank those guys constantly. Thank you guys for your effort. Hey, thank you guys for coaching them up there. I just want you to know I appreciate you, you know. And it wasn't from a place of falsity. I really appreciate it because I needed the dang help. I wasn't, you know, once you become the coordinator, you can't be in the drills coaching. You have to be making sure everything's going around. Only when you get into the season, you're coaching up scheme. That's when you actually have to be in the thick of it. But when you're doing a lot of other stuff, you're kind of overseeing, coaching your coaches, right? Which is another lesson I learned was how to coach coaches. And guess what? They used to be football players. They're just like the dang players. They'll freestyle on you now. They will freestyle on you, just like the kids will. But they're just like players. You talk, you know, you don't have to yell at them. You can just talk to them like men. But that is how I got them to buy in.
No, and you mentioned scheme there, so that's a perfect segue, and I like cheap and easy segues.
Okay.
So how much when you did take over as special teams coordinator, did you alter the scheme? And then from that first year to that second year, how much did you continue to alter it?
So I mean, I really only did it 1 year, and then I got the job at UH. So I started going into the spring, going into my second year, then I took that job at UH right, like literally the week before spring ball. But I loved our punt, right? And so what I did is I added onto, right? And I changed a little bit of names, so the names were a little more clear. And when I did make those changes, I made sure everybody knew why, right? Like the golden circle, Simon Sinek, everybody's seen how great leaders inspire action on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. And if you've listened to me talk before, you know exactly what I'm talking about because I talk about it every time. But you got to start with the why. It all starts with why. So anything I did change, I want everybody to know why. Punt return, right? Punt return is always kind of a mishmash. So I changed that. Kickoff return, I did change. I didn't change the structure, but I changed the format to be a little more complimentary. And that's no slight on Coach Cummings because that dude, I mean, without him, I wouldn't have had any success, especially for me. I owe a lot to that man, and he's unbelievable coach. He's all over Twitter. He does special team stuff. Brian Cummings, I think he's like at Big Backer or something on Twitter, but he's unreal. So I changed it just because we didn't have the guys that we used to have, and for my personality, I need things to be systematic, right, and complementary. And the scheme that I chose was same alignments, but it was a little more complementary. So. I bought into that, and then everything else I pretty much kept the same. But yeah, punt and kickoff return were the two ones that I really and kickoff. I changed kickoff a little bit, and you got to go with what you know, and so what you trust yourself on. And I've done a lot of learning with this specific coach, Neil Herman, who's now at Buffalo, is a special teams QC. He was at Buffalo State for a long time. Absolute stud, one of the hidden gems in special teams coaching in America. And he helped me with the kickoff they used, and it was big. You know, we gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown, but overall, I think that was a very positive change.
Okay. Now, you kind of mentioned it a little bit there, and I will kind of continue off that as well. So I love that you're giving me easy segues. You're making my life simple, Coach. But, I mean, you've mentioned a couple names already, but who are your... And it doesn't just have to be special teams either, because you've kind of mentioned those already. You could add culture in that too. Cause like I said, I know you're an extremely big culture guy, and we're both on an extreme same page there. But who do you reach out to or talk to for special teams when you were the special teams coordinator or culture? And you can go to today for culture, because I know you. Like I said, you and your brother talk to about everybody. So, both special teams and culture. Who do you kind of follow or reach out to?
Well, I mean, one coach that I always reach out to, really two of them, and they're on the same staff right now, is Joel Taylor at Mercer. He's the defensive coordinator, and Mike Adams, the safeties coach. I mean, these two dudes are out of this world coaches. They are, if you've don't know who they are, they're worth a follow on Twitter and to reach out to them. But those are two dudes that changed my career, especially Joel. Steve Lockway over at Minnesota Moorhead is absolutely unbelievable with culture. He's helped me a lot, more than I can, express in words. But dude, when it came to special teams, I got to start with number one, man. My man Freddie G at San Jose. He helped me. He taught me how to do special team circuits, how teaching circuits and progressions all work together rather than just doing a whole unit at one time, but really coaching the different pieces of the play. The next guy, Paul Gala at Bakersfield in California, Bakersfield High. I think he actually switched schools. It might be a different one now, but he used to be at Bakersfield. But Paul Gala taught me about the big three in every unit. So every time we do the values, right, the next thing we do, if we were doing punt, we do the punt big three, which was speed, secure, and sprint, right? Because we started in a huddle. So speed to the ball, secure your block, sprint your ass downfield, right? And that was what each unit had its big three. So the kids knew, and I would do the same thing with the big three. So-and-so, what's the first one? What's the second one? What's the third one? Or so-and-so, give me the big three for punt. And they'd say it, and I'd show it on board, and then we'd go to punt. And we'd start talking about punt, right? So every time we started punt, so they knew in their mind what it was about. So I would break the drills up into those big three. So like when we did punt return, attack, transition, finish. Attack like it's a block every play. Transition into phase so you know what block to use. Finish with the correct block. So we would have an attack circuit. We'd have a transition circuit. We'd have a finish circuit. So that way you're teaching, it's a true progression, and you're really taking into consideration the process of the play and how the kids can win no matter what. But that's what he taught me, and Paul Gala gave me that big three idea, and I ran with it. Garrett McLaughlin at Bates College is doing. He does the teams talk.
Yeah,
he does
Garrett's a really good guy. I've had numerous conversations with him.
He's top shelf, man. Neil Herman gave me the kickoff. He's at Buffalo now, but he coached. He taught Garrett. All right, so Garrett's one of his understudies. It's funny to see like guys and where they came from. And Neil, outstanding guy, spent hours on the phone with me talking about kickoff, getting me just jacked up. Like I was ready to run down on kickoff after talking. But he's again one of the best hidden gems in coaching. Pat Cashmore at Pitt State helped me with kickoff return, big time. He was at Oklahoma State at the time, but I played with Pat and his brother Willie, who's the special teams coordinator at Drake as well. And those two dudes, just phenomenal people, phenomenal coaches. Then Mike Goby over there at Wazoo now, helped me I went out and I was talking with some of my buddies at Hawaii. This is when I was at UNC, and I got to talk to him for a little bit. And we were talking about punt, a couple ideas, and he really he gave me a couple bombshells that really made some things click for that first year. And he's just a total stud. And then Matt and Mike Dovenberg over San Mateo, they were so instrumental in helping me just kind of function day to day as a special teams coordinator. They're the salt of the earth, best people. But man, one of the best things I did is I started a group text with Garrett because it was his first year special teams coordinator at Bates. Ben Bowling at Campbell, he's now the receivers coach. He was a safeties coach and co-special teams coordinator that year. And then Bryce Russler at Morningside, who's a special teams coordinator. So the four of us were in a group chat. And it was all our first year coordinating special teams. And I don't know what I would have done without that group chat. Because we were asking each other questions like, how do you evaluate a kicker? I don't know. I never kicked. I have no idea. What do we look like? Garrett texted one day, what am I looking for in a kicker? And I was did anybody got an answer? Because I sure don't. It was just all these different things that we were kind of crossing that bridge together. And so guys would have an issue and be like, dude, don't do this, guys. And we were, oh, okay. Or I'd do something cool and I'd send him a text like, dude, look what I did today. And it's pretty creative. It worked really well. The kids loved it. And then, the guys would do the same thing. So I would steal ideas from them and, or like, hey, how are you teaching kickoff return? Because our blocks are horrible. And they say, okay, we're doing like this. Oh, I like that. We might switch our technique up a little bit. But man, that open forum and our ability to be vulnerable with each other, I think helped us grow immensely in that year. And it also taught me too, everybody wants to be Mr. Tough Guy. And that's not cool. That's not being a man. And being a man is being open and admitting your mistakes and correcting them and, being real with yourself and laughing at yourself. And it allowed me to do that and not put on this big, you know how it is with coaches. They try to puff out their chest, puff up their peacock feathers and make themselves look awesome. And dude, I'm just here to help a bunch of kids, have a better life and career they can imagine for themselves. And the best way to do it is to be open and joke around, and
Oh, you don't have to tell me to joke around, Coach. That is, I was joking around with our former head coach who's still in our building, um, and we were joking around, and I was like, I forget what term I used, but I was like, that does not describe me whatsoever. Like, I am like the class clown, the fun one. I am not Mr. Politically Correct, stand and just do it. I'm like, our offensive coordinator told me I was funny a couple weeks ago in front of me and my quarterbacks coach. I have not let him forget that. That is not something you want to tell me, because I will ride that high as far as I physically can. There is not much more better you can tell me than I am funny. That is just
That's awesome.
I love laughing and making other people laugh. There's two of the best feelings in the world. So
It is the best.
yeah, that's what I try to do with all my players, and even my students. Like, just have a good time. Like,
That's right.
yes, it's my goal to teach you and educate you. Yes, but I'm also trying to give you a good experience,
That's right.
because I don't want you to look back at high school and be like, "Oh, that was miserable." Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't do anybody.
Life is too short.
Yeah, like I don't. That's just yeah. And then kind of the last thing as we kind of wrap up here. What are you going to take from your time as an assistant, special teams coordinator, quality control time, as you move into this role as defensive coordinator at Assumption? Obviously, it's been several months. I mean, you took the Assumption job back in, what was it, February, right? So obviously you've been there a while now, but still, like, what are you taking from those experiences? And you've mentioned a little bit as we've gone, but anything you may not have hit on, what are you taking from those experiences to your new role as defensive coordinator at Assumption?
Oh, I mean, everything we've talked about, I mean, are very transferable lessons, I mean, I can't even begin. I mean, the main things is still just making sure you coach these kids as people first. And it sounds so corny, but actually doing it, actually following through and making sure these guys understand you care, One thing I truly believe too that has helped me already connect with the guys is being vulnerable with them. Like, they say courage is living with your whole heart, right? Because it comes from the Latin word cur, which is the word for heart. It's okay. You gotta let these kids see you weak at sometimes, because they can't follow someone that's perfect. And I believe it's helped me connect with kids, and the kids connect with me. And, I just had a young man text me right when we started, doesn't even play in my position group, but he calls me, at night, says he had a rough year. And I was vulnerable with the group one day about something I've been going through. And I told him about it. I told the kids, and I said, I want you guys to see what it's like for a man to go through this, because unfortunately some of you are going to as well. And the kid called me that night. I was like, Coach, I've been going through this and that. And, but now he just, hey, could you have some time to talk today? And that's when the kids are getting it. And I just truly believe that the more you got to connect to these kids, it's not just about, it's about being a transformational coach, not transactional. As Andy's out, transforming these young men. But I mean, dude, you got to pull it out with the kids. Like, you can't put it in. You're not that cool. None of us are. And there's no perfect call. There's no perfect call at all. I wish there was. And Bert Watts, who was at Fresno, he's been excellent, helping coach me up as a coach. He was the DC at Fresno, now he's at Memphis as linebackers coach. But I hit him up when I was a GA at UNC. I hit him up. He's at UC Davis. I always watched all the UC Davis games every year in the season. I hit him up and I said, hey, can I buy you a beer at the convention? I don't for the first year, at UNC. And he's, oh, I like that. And then, I think it kind of got to him like, oh, actually, we're in conference, So he was always really polite to me. Then once I left UNC, I'm like, dude, I'm coming to watch spring ball this year. Or once he left UC Davis, I was still at UNC, went to Fresno. I said, I'm coming to watch spring ball. I have so many questions. And so we've been able to connect since then. And he's been outstanding. But he used to tell me that, dude, there's just no perfect call. But what is a perfect call? Kids that know what they're doing and play hard as hell and believe in it and play convicted. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. With those values, that's the perfect call, right? So that trumps every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
There you go, Coach. Well, Coach, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on and just talking a little special teams and culture with me. I know a lot of it was not necessarily X's and O's, but I think this stuff's a lot more. I mean, I've done 3 of these special teams podcasts now at this point, and 2 of the 3 have been more about preparation off the field, connecting, than anything. And that's kind of, the big thing with my YouTube channel and my podcasts are just connecting with others, building relationships, and kind of learning. So again, I want to thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I'm just really grateful that you thought of me and wanted to ask me any questions. And I'm glad we didn't talk about defense because I struggle giving guys advice when I haven't called it yet. So.
Oh, you're good. And I didn't want to put that pressure on you. And I will say also, I needed to get the better of the 2 Blevins brothers. I've already had the other one, and
that's right.
I can't wait to hear that. That'll be hilarious. So, yeah, all right, and I'm just gonna wrap this up real quick, Coach, and then we'll chit chat once I say this. So, that was another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast. Again, if you want to get a hold of Coach Blevins, his contact information in terms of his Twitter handle will be in the bio. Please don't hesitate to reach out to him. Him and his brother are all just great coaches and good people. And again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast.